Kelly Butenko joins us now, a paramedic who will talk with us about what to do in an emergency situation caused by heat. Thanks for being with us today, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
So we've heard of people getting heat stroke, sunstroke, heat exhaustion. Tell us a little bit, are these different terms for the same problem, or how are they different?
They are all different, but they're all problems along the same continuum of heat emergencies. The least serious of these is heat rash, which happens when there's sweat on your skin and it's just not able to evaporate. So you might have two areas of skin, say your arm rubbing against your underarm, where the sweat's just not able to evaporate, and that can cause a rash. The next most serious is heat cramps, and that's just a painful involuntary muscle cramp. They usually happen in your calves or your arms or your stomach or your back. And it's when you're exercising outside or doing other physical activity in a warm environment. And you sometimes might see these, like if you're watching college football and down in the southeast where it's hot and humid, you might see football players working with trainers on the sidelines trying to stretch out because they've got a heat cramp. The next most serious along that continuum would be heat exhaustion. And that can happen in two ways. One is similar to heat cramps, where the person might be exercising or doing some sort of physical activity. Another way that you can suffer heat exhaustion is just being in a warm environment for an extended period of time without having enough hydration. You're not drinking enough water. So say we hear about a heat wave in Chicago where it's 105 for days on end. Especially older people are affected, and they're just not able to get out of that warm environment, and they're not hydrating properly. And the thing to worry about with heat exhaustion is it can quickly become heat stroke if it's not treated, and heat stroke is by far the most serious of the conditions. Heat stroke is when your body loses its ability to regulate its own temperature. You just can't cool off, and it affects the brain, it affects the kidneys, it affects the muscles, it affects the heart. It can have long-term ramifications, and it can be life-threatening.
Thank you. So heat emergencies can start with something as simple as a heat rash and progress, obviously, to heat stroke. What are some symptoms we should be on the lookout, real quickly, before we get to that situation?
For a layperson, I like to kind of think of it from head to toe. So what's their mental status? Are they alert? Are they oriented? Do they know where they are? They might be dizzy. They might feel a little faint. They might have a headache. Working down a little, look at their skin. It might be cool and clammy. If you continue working down, they'll be breathing rapidly. They might be nauseous. They might be vomiting. If you check their pulse, it's likely that they're going to have a fast pulse and a weak pulse. And they also might have the muscle cramps that we had discussed earlier.
Okay. So heat stroke per se, some of the symptoms specifically to that, if you're to that position, what would that entail?
It's just a little more serious. Again, if we start at the top, they probably have a throbbing headache. Their mental status is even worse. They might be confused. They might be agitated. They could be having seizures. If you look at their skin, again, they've lost the ability to regulate their temperature. So their skin, rather than being cool and clammy, they're going to be red, they're going to be hot, they're going to be dry. They're not going to be sweating because they can't sweat anymore. Okay. They're still going to be breathing very quickly. They'll likely be throwing up, they'll have nausea, they'll have vomiting, and they could lose consciousness. That's sort of when you're getting farther and farther down that path.
So what do we need to do if a person does progress to this situation for heat stroke?
If you haven't quite gotten to heat stroke yet and you think they might have heat exhaustion, you just need to get them into a cool place. Get them cooled down. Get them into a cool place. Remove any layers that you can. If they've got a hat, a jacket, a scarf, any extra layers that you can take off. If you can get them into a cool shower, or if you can give them something to drink. You can give them water or Gatorade, definitely not alcohol because that doesn't help hydrate you. But as things progress and it becomes heat stroke, that's a life-threatening emergency. And at that point, they need definitive medical care. If you are near a hospital, can quickly get them to a hospital, fine. If you are not, call 911 because they need more than you can provide.
So, and then after, for example, if we've gotten to that point and I've had to call 911, is there anything I can do to help, this person next to me before an emergency responder arrives?
Yeah, just again, cooling is the most important thing that a layperson can do. Take off those layers, get them in a shower. You can even put them in front of a fan. You could get some wet towels or something and put wet towels around their head, around their neck, in their armpits, sort of the warmer areas that'll help cool them down quickly. So do what you can to help cool them before the professionally trained people show up.
Anything we should not be doing while we're waiting for the ambulance?
Definitely no alcohol. Alcohol does not help hydrate. Don't try and cool their body with any kind of medications. A lot of parents think, my kid has a fever, you give them ibuprofen or Tylenol normally. But that's not going to help now because your body's temperature regulation is just broken. And also, don't give them anything to drink if they're throwing up or unconscious. There's a chance that they could, aspirate something, or compromise their airway.
Okay. And then when you get there, and just in 30 seconds or less, can you tell us what you all will do?
Yeah, the first thing we're going to do is determine, do we have time to take care of this person on scene, or do we need to get going to the hospital immediately? And that'll sort of send us in the direction of what we need to do next. We're going to rely on bystanders to give us some background, so it's important for the bystanders to be able to tell us how this happened and the patient's medical history. But then the next things we'll do is we'll start the cooling if it hasn't happened already. We can start IVs and start rehydrating the person. If they are having problems with their airway, if they're unconscious, we'll take care of their airway and give them some oxygen. And then from there, we can check their heart, their blood sugar. We have medications that we can use to help control any seizures or any nausea and vomiting, and then we'll get on our way to the hospital.
Thank you so much, Kelly. When we come back, how to still have fun in the sun, but stay safe while we do it. Stay tuned.